after takeoff with 92 people aboard, and Flight 77, which was seized while carrying 64 people from Washington to Los Angeles. And then in Pennsylvania, United Airlines Flight 93, a Boeing 757, was en route from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco. It crashed about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh with 45 people aboard. And then United said another of its planes, Flight 175, a Boeing 767 bound from Boston to Los Angeles with 65 people aboard. And there are a couple of telephone numbers that you should be aware of at this hour. American Airlines has a hotline number. That's 1-800-245-0999. And then United Airlines, 1-800-932-8555.
Sukanya Christian has been standing by in Midtown all morning. Let's go to her now. Sukanya.
Marvin, like you and Jackie have been saying all morning, this catastrophe is hard to imagine. And one person that was pretty much in the thick of it is Ryan Delatese, who's 23 years old. You were in one of the towers. Ryan, can you just take us back to you were actually looking outside, enjoying the view of the Statue of Liberty when this all happened. Can you take us back to that moment?
I was on the phone with my mom. We were on break. It was like 8:45 in the morning. We were on break, and all of a sudden, I was just telling my mom how jealous she should be because I'm looking at the Statue of Liberty, and all this paper, it was just paper on fire, like was falling on the side of the window in a big cloud of smoke. And then I said, I think something exploded. I think there's a plane crash. And like my mom's like, don't be ridiculous. And
were you in the tower that the plane actually hit, or were you in another tower?
I haven't seen the TV yet, so I don't really know which one it hit. So they told us to come back into the conference room and stay calm. And then as one of our managers was telling us to stay calm, somebody came through and said it was time to, get out. And then we're on the 61st floor, and we walked down. There's express elevators, but we just had to walk the whole floor down, and then we were about the 22nd floor, and then all of a sudden, it just, everything shook. All shaking, like holding on, and just, it was ridiculous. And then this lady beside me just praying and holding my hand, and, and I said, everybody was calm. Everybody just like, we're going to get out of this alive. We haven't lost anybody. We're going to get out. And they called out the numbers as we went down, 22, 21, 20, 19. And then we were out.
And when you came out, what was the time frame from when one of the towers actually imploded?
We walked out at 8:45, and then next time I looked at my clock, because my phone was out of service, and that's my only watch, it was probably 10:30. But
did you see it go down?
Oh no, we were sitting. There's like a big waterfall out front, and we were on the other side of it, and I was helping this older lady get together and gather her things. She needed some water, and there was like a blimpie right there, and I went in, they gave me some water, and all of a sudden people just started running, and the whole street filled up with black smoke, and then we ran, and we're here. And
Ryan, you wanted to tell your mother that you're doing okay. You can just
yeah, Mom, Dad, I love you. I'm happy. I'm okay.
You're
feel
okay.
like a nerd.
You're okay. You're not a nerd. All right. We're glad that you're okay. Thank you for sharing time with us. All right. We just want to get you up to date on what's going on. Actually, the commute. A lot of people are trying to get out of the city. So, Marvin, this is the very latest from what we're hearing. Route 80 eastbound is closed. Route 3 near Giant Stadium is also temporarily closed. The LIRR coming into and out of Penn Station, temporarily no service. Subway service into and out of Manhattan also temporarily suspended. We were talking about the few buses that we have been seeing here on 2nd Avenue picking up people. And as you can see, there's a couple of buses that are passing by us right now. They are picking up people, very few people, but it's limited service, just going uptown and going downtown. What they are urging you to do is to take the waterways if you can. Take the ferry, take the fast ferries if you can get near there. The New Jersey Turnpike, it's very light traffic. And also, a lot of people are asking me, are the bridges open? Can I walk over the Brooklyn Bridge? Can I walk over the 59th Street Bridge? All morning, we've been telling you that the area bridges and tunnels are closed. Now we're even telling you that it's closed to pedestrian traffic. So that's really the very latest on this community, is people trying to come to grips with what's going on here today and try to get home safely. So we'll keep you up to date out here on the street. Back to you, Jackie and Marvin.
Tanya, no matter how many times you look at those pictures.
Well, I'm seeing some of these for the first time because I had an odyssey trying to get in here today from New Jersey, and seeing them, it just sickens you to your inside. You feel an emptiness, and there aren't words that can correctly describe it. I know looking at it just now, it looked like something I wanted to say. It was special effects from some Hollywood extravaganza, but unfortunately this is all too real. And those twin towers going down this morning, and two airliners crashing into them, and people throughout the morning, we've heard the words over and over again, oh my God, just total disbelief.
And there, you're looking at the pictures there again, Marvin.
It's in the, this is in
now,
slow motion.
This is before the other tower was attacked, so if you keep watching.
Okay, let's go. We understand the mayor and police commissioner are about to speak. Let's go to them right now.
Good afternoon. Today is obviously one of the most difficult days in the history of the city and the country. The tragedy that we're all undergoing right now is something that we've had nightmares about, but probably thought wouldn't happen. My heart goes out to all of the innocent victims of this horrible and vicious acts of terrorism. And our focus now has to be on saving as many lives as possible. We have hundreds of police officers and firefighters who are engaging in rescue efforts in Lower Manhattan. I want to thank Governor Patagi for the incredible cooperation and coordination, and including deploying the National Guard that will be available to relieve our police officers and firefighters and emergency workers in the next couple of hours. The governor and I just spoke to the President of the United States. The coordination with the federal government from the time of the first attack has been excellent, including closing off the airspace around Manhattan and doing everything that can possibly be done in the face of this barbaric act to make the city secure. And we will strive now very hard to save as many people as possible and to send a message that the city of New York and the United States of America is much stronger than any group of barbaric terrorists, that our democracy, that our rule of law, that our strength and our willingness to defend ourselves will ultimately prevail. And I'd ask the people of New York City to do everything that they can to cooperate, not to be frightened, to go about their lives as normal. Everything is safe right now in the city, and the people who are doing the relief effort need all the help they can get. And then, Governor, thank you very much for your assistance and your help and your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership through this crisis. This is a vicious attack upon New York. It's an attack upon America. It's an attack upon the whole concept of freedom and our way of life. And we cannot let these attacks succeed. The first step has to be to make sure we do everything in our power to protect the people and to save the lives of those whose lives are still at risk, and to help those who have been injured. And I want to commend the mayor, and I want to thank my colleagues from Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and the federal government have all offered and made ready support to help us deal with this ongoing crisis. The people of New York are not only the freest and most diverse people in the world, we're also, I believe, the most capable of rising to meet the challenges of this type of attack. And right now we want New Yorkers to remain calm, to go about their business, to appreciate the fact that everything to provide for their safety is being done, to appreciate that everything that can be done to provide for the health and the needs of the people who are still at risk is being done, and that we will continue to work to make sure that we get through this as strongly and quickly as possible. I want to thank the federal administration. Secretary Thompson has been on the phone with me a number of times, as well as the President, for what they are offering and prepared to do. And we're just confident that, while this is a horrible attack and one that is despicable and really unthinkable in its magnitude, we will get through this, and we will continue to have a great and free country, state, and society.
Do we know the number of casualties at this point, sir?
I don't think we really want to speculate about that. The number of casualties will be more than any of us can bear ultimately, and I don't think we want to speculate on the number of casualties. The effort now has to be to save as many people as possible.
There are large
and I don't think we will know the answer to that until sometime tomorrow or the next day.
Were there large numbers of firefighters?
There are a large number of firefighters and police officers who are in harm's way, and we don't know how many we've lost. But there's no doubt we've lost some firefighters and police officers.
Do you know anything about the cause of the explosions that brought the two buildings down yet? Was it caused by the planes or by something else?
We
There was a second explosion.
we believe that it was caused by the after effects of the planes hitting the buildings. We don't know of an additional explosion after that.
Could you tell us, do you expect any further attacks on New York? Is there anything to indicate that there could be more bombs, more planes out there? I know originally there was a report that 8 planes had been hijacked, 4 have only been accounted for. What about the remaining 4? And is there any possibility that there could be bombs on the ground planted by...
We have no specific information to that effect. Obviously, the city is now closed. The airspace around the city is closed. And we are on heightened alert. But we have no specific information suggesting any further attack.
Can you tell us where the planes came from?
Warships coming into the port of New York?
I think to give the people of New York confidence, to show that the federal government is standing with us, and to just to make certain that nothing further happens. This has been a very, very difficult and traumatic day for the people of the United States and the people of the city. And I think that it's an act that shows that the federal government is going to do everything they can to support us and help us.
Can you give us an idea of the extent of the rescue effort that's going on right now in Lower Manhattan? The scope of this thing, this operation?
There are over 1,000 rescue workers, probably about 2,000 that are deployed, trying to get into the buildings, trying to find people, trying to search for people. The governor and I spoke a couple of hours ago. The governor has deployed the National Guard to relieve them because our people are going to need reinforcements pretty soon. But right now they don't want to leave because they're searching for innocent citizens, and they're searching for some of their brothers and sisters.
Are you finding survivors?
Yes, we have some numbers that we can give you. We have 1,500 people at Liberty State Park who were evacuated, described as walking wounded. They were evacuated by ferry and other means. There are about 600 as of about 15 minutes ago in local hospitals that we account for, 600 people that are being treated in local hospitals. And there are 150 in particular that were critical, that were moved by EMS. New York City has 170 hospitals. So we have a lot of hospitals, and we're utilizing all of them. Probably the one that was the hardest hit was St. Vincent's Hospital. And I would like to just single them out and commend them, because as I was rushing down there, after the first plane hit, and before the second, they were already deploying people on the street. I could see the doctors and nurses outside getting ready to receive people. And that was before the second plane actually hit the World Trade Center.
What was your experience down there?
Also blood donations. We have several sites for blood donations. 153 East 53rd Street, 66th in Amsterdam, which is the Red Cross, and 310 East 67th Street. If people want to do something and they can donate blood, that's going to help not just today, but tomorrow and the next day. This relief effort is going to take some time.
Mr. Mayor, you were one of the first people down there. Can you describe the scene in your own words, what you saw down there?
I don't know that I'm really able to describe it. It was the most horrific scene I've ever seen in my whole life. We saw the World Trade Center in flames, a big gaping hole all the way on the top of it. We could see people jumping from the top of the building. And then we went into Barclay Street, 75 Barclay Street, I think it was, and we were there when the building collapsed. And it collapsed in part on 75 Barclay Street. So we were trapped in the building for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, trying to get out different exits. And we finally went through a basement and came out 100 Park Place.
Did you ever fear for your own safety, sir?
Sure, yeah.
What went through your mind?
I don't think anything went through my mind other than making sure that we all remained calm and found an exit and just tried to figure out the most intelligent thing to do. Probably the same thing that went through the minds of 10,000 other New Yorkers who I could see on the streets, and I really have to commend them. If you really want to know what New Yorkers are all about, you just watch the way in which they handle themselves. They didn't panic. They moved deliberately. They moved swiftly. But they didn't hurt each other. They helped each other. I mean, these are just the most wonderful people in the world.
Do we know anything about the composition of that dust that blankets Lower Manhattan? Is there any asbestos or any hazardous material in that dust?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to this.
Mr. Mayor, I got reports of a gas explosion related to this. Are you aware of that? There was a gas leak or possible explosion?
We don't believe it. We don't believe that's the case. No.
Mr. Mayor, can you tell us anything about where the planes come from, where the aircraft came from?
Bill Diamond reminds me that we've turned off the gas in the city buildings, just to be certain.
Can you tell us
as a precaution
where these aircraft came from? There was a report they may have been hijacked in Boston.
I think we should leave that up to the federal government to Yes, we do have some information, but I think we should leave that up to the federal government to release that information. Our focus is on the relief efforts. And
Governor, do you think there should be any retaliation on the part of the United States for what happened here in this country, both in New York, Washington, and other places?
First step right now, Marcia, is to make sure we do everything to help those people who need our support, and whether they're injured or still trapped in buildings. The second thing is to make sure at the same time we're providing the maximum security against possible additional incidents. But clearly, this is an attack upon America. It's an attack upon our freedom and our way of life, and we must retaliate and go after those who perpetuated this heinous crime against the people of America.
Mayor, this is
Cheryl,
Pearl Harbor. Do you consider this to be an act of war? This has been compared.
I'll do both.
This has been compared to Pearl Harbor. Do you consider this to be an act of war?
This is a vicious, unprovoked, horrible attack on innocent men, women, and children. It's one of the most heinous acts, certainly in world history. And as the governor said, and I said to the president, we fully and completely support him in any action that he has to take in order to make an example out of the people who are responsible for this.
Is it an act of war in your mind?
I don't know that I want to use those words. I think the president is the one that has to respond, and I think what he has to know is that all of us in New York support him, and support him completely in the efforts that he's going to have to make over the next couple of days, week, and to make a point that people can't do this. You can't attack innocent men, women, and children. And ultimately, I'm totally confident that American democracy and the American rule of law will prevail. And the people of New York are going to help to demonstrate that over the next couple of days.
Anybody take responsibility for this? Any group take responsibility at this time? And what is the city doing to safeguard the citizens now that something like this has happened?
Well, first of all, I don't know of anyone that's taken responsibility for it at this time. And secondly, the New York City Police Department is fully deployed, not just in the rescue effort, but all throughout the city of New York, offering as much protection and as much security as we're capable of for the citizens of the city. And at this point, I believe that the people in New York City can demonstrate our resolve and our support for all of the people that were viciously attacked today by going about their lives and showing everyone that vicious, cowardly terrorists can't stop us from being a free country and a place that functions. And we'll do everything we can to make that point.
Jennifer Steinauer, please.
Just a housekeeping. Can you please tell us what's going to happen to the New York primary?
This morning, I issued an order suspending the primary across the state. There will be no primary today, and we'll reschedule it once we get through this.
Jennifer,
Can you please walk us through the municipal services right now? What's going on with the subways and the schools, the courts?
The subway, the schools, the chancellor, I commend the chancellor. He was on the phone a number of times with us. He coordinated very, very carefully what would happen. He thought it out, and he came up with a very good plan, which was essentially to keep the schools open, to keep the children in school, so we didn't have a large number of children in the different boroughs that would be released from school. They're being released, I shouldn't say as normal, but basically on the normal schedule. If parents aren't there to pick up the young children, then the children will be taken to a center, and the parents will be notified to come and pick them up. The children who have Metro cards, who normally travel on the subway, will be able to do that. The subways are functioning in 4 of the 5 boroughs. And can we get an update, Joe, on how the subway's doing in Manhattan?
All the lettered lines are working.
And in Manhattan?
In Manhattan lines, all the lettered lines.
All the lettered lines are working, including in Manhattan. And throughout the rest of the city, public transportation is normal. So the children should be able to return from school in the normal fashion. And if any children don't have parents to pick them up, then we'll hold them, let the parents know, and then the parents can come and pick them up.
Mr. Mayor, you mentioned you were on Barclay Street. What's the radius of damage that's been affected? How many other side streets around the world?
I don't think we know yet. The whole area of Lower Manhattan has been very much affected by it.
How many
police and fire are involved? Like how many all NYPD off-duty officers, as they come in, or like
all NYPD and FDNY officers are on duty now, and we're going to need all of them. And again, thanks to the governor and the way in which the state reacted, we will have 1,600 National Guard to relieve them over a period of time so we can get some relief for them.
If anybody's looking for someone that may have been in the World Trade Center or in and around that area, what should they do? How can they get information?
We're going to give you numbers so that we can try to help coordinate that. Individual businesses have already done that. But we will as soon as we can find some time from the relief efforts, give you a number in which people can call, and then we can direct them to the right place.
The National Guard will
looting or anything like that? Any lawlessness?
There have been no reports of lawlessness, no reports of looting. As I said, we saw a lot of people that were part of the escape effort, and they seem to be conducting themselves in a very, very sensible way, a very deliberate way. They seem to be helping each other. So I don't think we have any reports like that at all.
So the only National Guard we'll see will be in Lower Manhattan in the bomb site area. They won't be patrolling the rest of Manhattan.
No, the purpose of it is to help with the relief effort. We're going to need the help of the state, surrounding areas with heavy-duty equipment.
When will they be arriving?
National Guard troops, some have arrived already, and we expect to have up to close to 2,000 between the National Guard and the state police by later this evening.
Mayor, bridges and tunnels will have to stay closed indefinitely?
I think everything is closed for now, and then maybe in about an hour or two we can give you an update on what the plan will be for tomorrow.
We saw a lot of lightly injured people walking out of the area because obviously the emergency services were needed for the very seriously injured. People covered with dust, some people had difficulty breathing. Is there any health advice to give to people who were caught in this thing, who are not necessarily at risk of losing their life, but
I think well, obviously if you feel ill or you feel that you've been affected by it, you should go to a hospital and get checked out. But if it's just discomfort that you feel, then you can do basically what we did, was to wash our faces off and get rid of the clothes and get to an area where you can breathe in fresh air.
How many people were in the World Trade Center at the time of this attack?
I mean, it was business had already started. It was right before 9 o'clock. I don't know.
Tens of thousands?
Yes. Approximately. Someone just gave me a number of approximately 10,000, but that's a guess.
How long will the city remain on a heightened state of alert?
Until we're told not to. I mean, until the FBI and the police department and the federal government tells us that we shouldn't. Right now, the city is should be on a state of alert. Now, that instead of frightening people, that should make people feel more confident that everything is being done to keep things secure. And again, let me emphasize that the reason for the National Guard, because I heard the question before, is to help with the relief effort, not because there's any fear of any other problems in the city right now.
How is the
Mr. Mayor, can you tell us about the other public buildings, City Hall, One Police Plaza? When will you say for you to return?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet. Hopefully soon, but I don't know the answer to that.
And we heard reports that One Police Plaza was evacuated. Was that true?
No, the command center is open.
And it was never.
We have people in the command center right now.
Mr. Mayor, there have also been reports of large loss of life among the police and firemen who were sent there to rescue people. How accurate are those reports?
There is no question that we lost police officers and firefighters, and some that I know personally, and all of us here know personally, that we're very worried about. And we're not going to know the answer to that until much later. And maybe we should just close now and give you a briefing later. And I would just ask everyone, I talked to Cardinal Egan before because he's at St. Vincent's Hospital. Everybody should in their own way say a prayer and ask God for help and for assistance, and also ask God to give us the strength to overcome this, because I know we're going to need strength to overcome it. And I want the people of New York to be an example to the rest of the country and the rest of the world that terrorism can't stop us. American democracy is much stronger than a vicious, cowardly terrorist, and we're going to overcome this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well done, Mayor.
Do you know when the next briefing will be?
An hour and a half?
An hour and a half?
Yeah, probably.
All right, that was Mayor Giuliani speaking for the first time live, along with Governor Pataki, Police Commissioner Bernard Carrick, and Fire Commissioner Tom Van Essen.
And as he said, this is a nightmare we thought never would happen, and for the first time we've heard about casualties, no numbers attached to that, but Mayor Giuliani did say, and here we quote, "The number of casualties will be more than we can bear." ultimately. And he said a large number of fire and policemen, police officers were in harm's way and among the casualties today. He also said that the city is closed. Airspace is closed. The city on a heightened alert, all to show New Yorkers confidence that we are in control of the situation. He also appealed for calm and for prayers, and also he said that New York would stand strong to prove that we will not be impacted and stopped by terrorist acts.
Marvin, he did give some sketchy numbers about some of the wounded. He had about 1,500 people at Liberty State Park. He described them as the walking wounded, also about 600 in local hospitals. And he also let New Yorkers know there's about 170 hospitals in New York City. So he says that we can take care of this catastrophe. Also about 150 people, critical people, have been moved by EMS. And he also mentioned that some of the wounded and possibly those who did not make it are police and firefighters who were in and around the building trying to rescue others when they themselves became victims of this terrible, terrible tragedy. Also, he did say that subways are functioning again.
Yes, he said all 5 boroughs, they are. All the letter lines are running again.
And public transportation. They're also the schools commissioner is keeping kids in school, and he said that they will be released at about the regular time. Isn't that what he said, about regular time?
Right.
And parents should come. School chancellor said that parents should come and pick up their children. If they are not picked up by their parents, then they will be kept over in a center until the parents can come and get them. Of course, children who have Metro cards and get home by themselves are being allowed to leave by themselves.
He also said that the mayor and the governor have both spoken with President Bush, who has pledged all his support at this time. And he said it's very important to send a message that New York and the United States is much stronger than any group of barbaric terrorists. There is an urgent need for blood. We have a number for you. We can put that up on the screen right now. Blood is desperately needed in New York. Please call this number, 1-800-933-2566. 150 people, according to Mayor Giuliani, are critically injured. That's the number known at the moment. 600 others at local hospitals, and 1,500 described by the mayor as the walking wounded down at Liberty State Park. He said right now the focus that we should be paying is on saving as many lives as possible.
He is also urging New Yorkers to be calm at this time. I know it's very difficult when you see what's going on around you, but he is urging New Yorkers to try and stay calm and not to panic. It'll only make the situation a lot more difficult.
And he also said that gas has been shut off and city buildings weren't clear if they were city government buildings or all buildings throughout the city until this crisis is over, a crisis he called a vicious, unprovoked attack on innocent men and women, the most heinous attack in world history, and that it is indeed. I believe Melinda Murphy, are we ready to go back to Melinda up in Air 11? Melinda, you're still the only news helicopter aloft right now, and you've been with us doing a yeoman's job for the past several hours, keeping us abreast of
You're looking at live pictures of Lower Manhattan, where the World Trade Centers once stood, now replaced by a large plume of smoke, which goes, I would say, probably 5,000 or 6,000 feet into the air at this point. As you can see, the smoke has now become white, which is a good sign. That means that more smoke is white smoke is steam, and that means water getting onto the fire. However, there is still a lot of dark smoke in there, and that, of course, means that things are still burning on the ground here. The smoke is now going more up into the air instead of out over the areas, but it's still a very good idea to keep your windows closed at this point, because this smoke is very noxious. You're not sure exactly what's in that smoke. Of course, there's some jet fuel in there as well as other things, so it's definitely a good idea to keep your windows closed. What you can see is that there is still a lot of...
That plume of smoke is billowing still to this hour. The dark smoke indicates fire is still burning, and it's rising as high as 4,000 feet, we understand. You can see it from everywhere in the tri-state area, and wherever you look at it and you see it, it just sickens you to the stomach.
Days, maybe weeks before things calm down there.
Okay.
We're going to go to Sonia Diener now. She's live in Washington with an update possibly on President Bush and what he has planned. Sonia?
Hi, good afternoon. We are still waiting to see when President Bush will be heading back here to Washington, D.C. We understand that the President, the First Lady, the Vice President, and members of Congress are at secure but undisclosed locations. We don't know where, and we don't know when he's coming back. Now, about 2 hours ago, President Bush spoke from Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, and here's a little bit of what he said.
Make no mistake, the United States will hunt down and punish those responsible for these cowardly acts.
President Bush also saying that the U.S. is taking all appropriate security precautions to protect the American people. He also said the U.S. military is on high alert. Let's show you the Pentagon now. About 10 o'clock Eastern time this morning, a apparently hijacked commercial airplane crashed into the Pentagon, into a section of the Pentagon that has a helipad area on top. There was a fire. There were some secondary explosions. Then part of the building collapsed. Some 24,000 employees from the Pentagon were evacuated. We understand that at least 50 people were injured in that explosion and fire. No official word yet on fatalities. And we understand that those fires are still burning. We do have a live picture to show you of the Pentagon now. Fire still burning, but not as severe. And you can really get a feel for the extent of the damage there. A Pentagon spokesperson said that many people felt a thud when this plane crashed into the building, and that's really saying something because the Pentagon is huge. Other witnesses saying there was screaming and pandemonium and that the whole building shook. We also understand that Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld is still at the Pentagon. He is in the National Military Command Center, a secure location. Here in Washington, it is a virtual ghost town here. Most people have cleared out. The White House has been evacuated, Treasury Department, State Department, Justice Department, the U.S. Capitol, and the Supreme Court building. Really, all federal buildings have been evacuated. And real quickly, we have a new piece of news about that apparently hijacked plane that crashed in Pennsylvania. A Virginia congressman, Jim Moran, Virginia, says that that plane was apparently headed for the presidential retreat at Camp David. And Congressman Moran says he got his information at a Marine Corps briefing earlier today. Again, Moran says that that hijacked plane that went down in Somerset, Pennsylvania, and western Pennsylvania, apparently was meant to crash at Camp David in the mountains of Maryland. So that is the latest on that crash, and that's the latest situation here in Washington. Again, still waiting to see when President Bush will be returning to the White House. Back to you.
Such a horror. Sonia, I know most of the town is evacuated, but any word from anyone you've spoken to about how we were so vulnerable? There only weeks ago there had been words that Osama bin Laden had been planning some massive attack against the United States. Any
well, members of Congress, some members of Congress have been speaking out saying our defenses were down, we were vulnerable, we were just lulled into a false sense of security. Some of those members of Congress saying that we just got no advance warning, and the rhetoric is getting very intense. Some congressmen saying we are at war, others calling this a second Pearl Harbor. Senator Hatch of Utah said we're going to get the bastards who did this. But no one has claimed, or the FBI says it has received no official claim of responsibility, so we still don't know who did this.
Okay, Sonia, thank you very much. Still too early to get the definitive word on that. Many groups, many terrorist groups linked to terrorists have claimed responsibility, including the Islamic Jihad, groups linked to Osama bin Laden, and the Front for Palestine as well.
That's right. And Marvin, right now we're going to go live to Glenn Thompson. He's at Bellevue Hospital where some casualties are being taken. Glenn, what can you tell us at this hour?
Well, Jackie, at this point, all of the hospital's 700 to 800 physicians have been called in here to handle this emergency. We're told the most severe traumas are being brought here. At this point, there are 20 major injuries. 120 patients have minor injuries, most of those smoke inhalation, and there are 2 DOAs. Now, Linda Minervin works downtown in the Woolworth building and was injured. She's going to describe to you now in her own words what happened.
You were where were you in the subway? I was coming out of the subway on Broadway in Nassau.
What happened?
When I came out, I saw the towers where there was a plane sticking out of one side of the tower. And there were literally people throwing things through the windows and jumping from the windows. I guess they thought that was their only option. They were going to jump out or they were going to be blown to pieces. And I tried to get away from going away. I twisted my ankle. I had an asthma attack because I couldn't breathe, and all I could see was a big ball of smoke behind me. I never want to go through it again. It really gives me second thoughts about working in the city. My first job in Manhattan, and probably will be my last. It's not sitting well with me at all.
And what's your name, ma'am?
Linda.
Linda, what's your last name? Okay, now one thing the hospital desperately needs right now is blood. They've set up a makeshift blood donation center in the lobby of Bellevue Hospital. So if you can give blood, you're being asked to come down and do your part in helping out. Jackie, Marvin.
Okay, Glenn, thank you very much for that report. I'm joined now by Mary Murphy, who has been out in town. And what is the scene you've seen the last couple of hours?
Well, I know as soon as this happened about 9 o'clock, I was called desperately by this woman, Sally DeLeo, in Staten Island. Her husband, Vito, survived the World Trade Center bombing in 1993. He was at Ground Zero and crawled out of the rubble. She called me to hear if I heard anything, because she said if Vito had a way to get to a phone, he would get to a phone. So she was crying, and I tried to reach him on his beeper. It wasn't working, of course, because most of the telephones were out of service. And then we found out a couple of hours later that he was right near an exit when this happened. So Vito DeLeo did get out, original survivor from the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. And of course, coming in from Queens, everything was shut down.
You had to come across, you walked across the bridge.
Yes, I walked across the 59th Street Bridge, much like Jackie did. I was on the number 7 train in Flushing, told us to get off the train. Then I walked a few blocks, we got a bus, we had to get off the bus, and then finally I hitchhiked. I've never done that in my life. Made it to Queens Plaza and over the bridge, and there were thousands of people flooding the bridge coming from Manhattan into Queens. And there were some people heading into Manhattan with me as well. You know, of course, that firemen and police officers were asked to come in. Any emergency personnel who were off duty were asked to come in and help out.
And as Mayor Giuliani said, it's just an incomprehensible nightmare that we thought we never would see, that never would happen. We're going to go to Sukanya Krishna now, who's been standing by for us in Midtown. Sukanya.
Right here on 2nd and 42nd, you can see that this area, they've actually brought in trucks over here with sand. Before there was a bus that was blocking the way, but as you can see, they are heightening up security. You know, we've been sitting out here pretty much all day talking to a lot of people, and there's a sense that this isn't happening. A lot of people are walking by just trying to make sense of this, and it's really been unreal. A lot of people have been talking about the people that have died. There are a lot of emotions on the street, too. A lot of people who are angry. A man just walked by just now screaming for profanities, trying to make sense of what's happening. And really, I had no answers for him. All morning long, we've been talking to witnesses who made it out of that carnage that was Lower Manhattan. I've been listening to Melinda Murphy describe what was where the Twin Towers stood. Also, a lot of people are trying to get out of Manhattan, and though the crowds have thinned out some, we just want to update you on what is functioning. Speaking of subways, according to the mayor, the subways are all functioning in all 4 boroughs. In Manhattan, though, it's only the letter lines that are working uptown and downtown. Also, the bridges and tunnels at this point do remain closed. Pedestrians also are not able to walk across these bridges, as far as we're told. Marvin, I know it took you were saying about 3 hours to get in. We've been here all morning. We actually watched this unfold, and there's really a sense of numbness. I guess that's the only way to explain this numbness. Can I talk to you? You've been here, and what's going through your mind?
Just total chaos and upset. I'm so upset about what's going on. The whole city is just up in arms.
What have you been seeing as you've been walking
just
around?
Just people, everyone crying around me. I live up on 57th Street. The bridge is completely packed. People are hitchhiking, and everyone's just pitching in and helping each other. People are picking up people, pregnant ladies on the side of the road, taking them over the bridge just to get them home.
It's almost an unreal, surreal feeling that you're experiencing.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's like total shock. The whole city's in total shock.
I guess that's the best way to put it. The whole city is in total shock. You can see over here as well, people have been listening to radios. The payphone all morning long has been filled with people. You can see it's thinning out. People have been on cell phones trying to get in touch with loved ones, trying to talk to them, tell them that they're okay. So, you know, we're trying to get the information out there, and that's really the very latest here as we stand here on the corner of the Israeli consulate and the UN, where things are pretty much status quo. Also, Marvin, I would like to point out to you that all morning long, we have been seeing F-16s pass by here. Maybe you can give us some insight as to what that is all about. So I throw it back to you.
Well, thank you, Sakanya. Our understanding is that the city is under military surveillance, and the support is being brought in, as promised by President Bush, to the governor and the mayor. As they said a few moments ago, they have all the support from the president. And also, I understand 2 warships are on their way to New York, including one of them, the aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy. You use the word numbness from so many people. Mary and I are sitting here. We remember so vividly the World Trade Center explosion in 1993, and there was that emptiness we felt inside immediately after that. And as horrendous as that was, and there were 6 people killed, we look at this today and we see those pictures of those 2 buildings coming down. Surreal is the word. It is sickening. It is, I mean, the emotion.
It looks like a movie. It looks
right.
like
I said that before. It looks like a special effect, a digital effect in some motion picture coming out of Hollywood, but not real. And unfortunately, it is all too real. And we have no numbers on the casualties. Mayor Giuliani said a few moments ago, right now we got to focus on saving as many people as possible. But he said the number of casualties, quote, will be more than we can bear ultimately, and including a number of firefighters and police officers who were trying to save people there.
We're going to another live shot now out on the field. Lolita Lopez, I believe, is near the 59th Street Bridge, where, as I mentioned before, thousands and thousands of people were trying to empty out of Manhattan and get home to the outer boroughs. Lolita.
Lolita, go ahead. Can you hear us, Lolita? Okay, I guess Lolita cannot hear us. Let's go to a piece of video which I shot this morning as I tried to get over here from New Jersey. The city virtually is closed. This is a shot in Weehawken. Tens of thousands of people. You can see the site of the plume of smoke from the World Trade Center. They're arriving in Weehawken. They sent emergency services from New Jersey communities. They were going to set up a triage area at the ferry terminal. They were going to bring some of the injured across. The river was virtually closed except for the ferry going in one direction. There is a boat I managed to commandeer, and God bless you, Victor Becker, because he took me aboard and brought me over to Manhattan, where he owns the party boat, the Horizon. He was making that available to the thousands of people trying to leave town. And this was the scene in Lower Manhattan around 23rd Street. Take a look at the lineup of ambulances. They went down from that point all the way down to the World Trade Center area. The sight, absolutely unbelievable. Every time I saw that plume of smoke, I got sick to my stomach, as it did everyone else.
I believe we can reach Lolita now. She's over by the 59th Street Bridge. We had a little audio trouble earlier. Lolita.
All right, Mary and Marvin, we're having the same problem as the rest of the city, using our Nextels here to get in communication. Right now, we are at the 59th Street Bridge and 2nd Avenue. Take a look across my shoulder here. This is the only way many people can get back home to their houses and their homes in Queens. People are, public transportation people, MTA, are telling everyone to walk down the 59th Street Bridge, take that long route back home to Queens. That is one of the only ways it's going to be possible for them to get that way. Now, trucks and cars are also traveling this route, trying to get back that way. And we were earlier at the Midtown Tunnel, where people are getting across that way, but only cars that are loaded. Some cars are picking up passengers and people they don't even know in order to get the number requested to get across. Now, we did hear from the mayor earlier today, about 10 minutes ago. Subways are functioning in all 4 boroughs. All the letter lines are working out of Manhattan. But if you want to get uptown, you're going to have to take Metro North up there and then take some buses down. If you get to Grand Central Station, they will route you the correct way so that you can get both uptown and also into Jersey. Live at the 59th Street Bridge, I'm Lolita Lopez. Back to you guys in the studio.
Okay, Lolita, thank you for that report. We've been through this before, and we have those vivid images of Oklahoma City, the World Trade Center, and now this, the most heinous act ever, said the mayor.
Well, we had done a history piece a few years back of some of the other incidents that rocked New York. Nothing, of course, anywhere near what we're going through today. But February 26, 1993, I know Marvin and I were there when the World Trade Center was bombed by that Ryder rental truck that came out of Jersey City. There were Egyptian-born terrorists behind that attack. I think the vehicle was packed with about 1,500 to 2,000 pounds worth of explosives. It took the police about a week to find the terrorists. In this case,
six people were killed in that one, and we had about 1,000 people who were injured, but nothing near like this one today.
And we had other incidents that happened since then involving potential terrorist plots, people caught in Brooklyn with potential explosives going on the subway. And I have a little piece that you may want to see that gives you a little bit of background on other incidents before today.
February 26, 1993. It's the day foreign terror blasted New York into a new reality.
I never want to go through that again. I'll never go in that building. It was horrible, the feeling not getting out, not being able to get out. You felt smothered.
Within a week, the FBI had the undercarriage of the Ryder rental van that carried the bomb and its first suspect in New Jersey, a Palestinian named Mohammed Salameh, and then another Palestinian, chemical engineer Nadel Ayad, whose voice was captured on a message left for the Daily News.
This is the Liberation Army. We conducted the explosion at the World Trade Center.
The FBI discovered this ripped photo of Ayad in a garbage can outside his New Jersey home, the accused terrorist posing with a grenade beneath a Palestinian flag. The feds also found him posing with Egyptian radical El Sayed Nosair at Attica State Prison in New York before the Trade Center bombing, but after Nosair had been convicted of gun charges in the fatal shooting of Rabbi Meir Kahane. Within months, the group would be linked to a much larger conspiracy. A blind Egyptian sheikh named Omar Abdelrahman finally surrenders from a Brooklyn mosque after the FBI discovers a bomb factory at a Jamaica Queens warehouse. Surveillance tape showing a half-dozen men delivering steel drums to the site.
As we entered the bomb factory, the 5 subjects were actually mixing the witch's brew.
The sheikh was later convicted of plotting attacks on the UN and bridges and tunnels linking New York and New Jersey. This evidence tape shows ringleader Sadiq Ali doing a run-through in the Lincoln and Holland tunnels, even scoping out areas where security personnel are stationed. Within a year of the sheikh's life sentence, 2 letter bombs arrived at the United Nations, not long after others had turned up at a federal prison housing the sheikh.
All were postmarked from Alexandria, Egypt.
And on February 23, 1997, the city was once again shaken by a fatal shooting rampage, this one on the observation deck of the Empire State Building. In this case, 69-year-old Palestinian Ali Abu Kamal from Gaza City killed a Danish tourist and then himself, leaving behind a letter that railed against Americans and Zionists, stating a goal to murder as many as possible.
Obvious from that piece that this has been a continuing problem for our city ever since 1993.
And still what they want to know is, how we were so vulnerable at the airports, and there had been threats of recent groups linked to Osama bin Laden, who many officials in Washington believe is the one behind it, although no one, he has not directly claimed responsibility for this attack.
But one thing that bears repeating, though, is that these flights did not originate in New York City. One of the flights originated in Boston.
Out of Newark.
Okay.
Out of Newark Airport. And also we should mention that Mayor Giuliani did say the city virtually is closed for security purposes, and he says to give New Yorkers confidence. People trying to come in from New Jersey should be aware that eastbound Route 3, eastbound Route 80, the bridges and the tunnels remain closed while officials deal with this crisis that all began unfolding shortly after 9 o'clock this morning when 2 jetliners slammed into the World Trade Center. That damage ultimately bringing down the Twin Towers, and no word yet on the extent of casualties.
I believe right now we're going back to our colleague Larry Hoff, who is live downtown. I believe he's still near City Hall, which basically has sort of become a command central for a lot of the operation. Larry?
Near Ground Zero. Larry?
Well, we return live outside City Hall here. You're looking down on Center Street, and things have cleared dramatically from just an hour ago. tilt up just a little bit. The last of the plume coming out of the World Trade Towers, that destructive site there, still blotting out the sun. We haven't seen that many of the rescue workers returning here. It's still that steady flow of people coming out of the financial district, and an ash and dust just covers the area. One thing I'd like to bring up right now, we can't get a TV signal down here, and because of all the problems with cellular and all, we're not hearing really the broadcast. The wild stories that are now emulating, and that's almost becoming frightening here. Everybody's coming by. I'm not even going to repeat the things that people are speculating on right now, and that's one of the real scares that you have out here, people reacting to all of that, and they are some hairy stories as well. So this is where, we count on you guys to kind of centralize everything and keep it in order for us. So we'll continue on watch. Probably we'll be handing off to some other people in a little while, and we'll continue our coverage, tomorrow morning as well. So I'll say goodbye to you guys right now.
Okay, Larry, thank you very much for staying with us. But it's a long day for you and for all of us as we continue to report on the unfolding events of this worst terror attack ever in U.S. history, the worst terror attack, you might say, really on humanity.
And they're calling it another Pearl Harbor. We can't say that enough. I mean, such a surprise attack. The planes first apparently hitting the Twin Towers here in New York, and then, of course, the bomb and explosion in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and then there were other explosions as well.
Right, the one in the Pentagon, 4 planes involved. We'll give you more details on that and wrap it all up, the events that began unfolding this morning. But I believe you have a tape report, Mary. They say it's ready now.
Well, as we've been telling you all morning, this happened just before 9 o'clock. People just getting to work, just coming off the trains down near the Twin Towers. Many people coming off the PATH trains out of New Jersey and, reading the wire copy, hearing the reports from our colleagues out in the field. They're telling us that people, as soon as they got off the trains, were told, do not go into the Twin Towers, go nowhere near the Twin Towers. So they were basically just fleeing. And then, of course, another explosion rocked the area. We've put together some tape to recap the events of this morning, and I think that's ready now. And just in case you're just joining us to see what happened starting just about 9 o'clock this morning.
The first plane hit right as the workday began for 50,000 people in the Twin Towers, right before 9 a.m.
There are flames. There is a massive fire here.
Our WB11 cameraman was underneath the skyscrapers 18 minutes later when the second jetliner aimed for a second tower.
We have a huge hole. We have a lot of dead American people up here, and we need answers.
Some witnesses saw bodies falling out of the towers. Another reported a man and woman holding hands, jumping together from somewhere near the 80th floor.
I was supposed to be on the 82nd floor for a 9 o'clock meeting, and I was about 10 minutes late to get there. And they're telling me now that planes were going through the 82nd floor area. So I guess I was kind of covered by somebody up above.
As the debris rained down, blowing shoes, briefcases, pencils, and other articles from people's desks, the blinding smoke enveloped most of Lower Manhattan's world-famous skyline. Within an hour, the towers were falling down.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
At St. Vincent's Hospital, stretchers lined the streets. Doctors and nurses stood by with IV bottles as ambulance after ambulance arrived, carrying survivors clearly still in shock. Even the city's emergency medical workers themselves among the victims, firefighters and police officers. One couple answered the call for blood donations.
I saw the second tower come down. I saw more than I ever wanted to see in one day.
And it was enough to bring you down here to help. What do you hope to do here?
There's nothing else we can do, but give blood is something we can do, and I hope everybody who can do that will do that.
Obviously, people nowhere near the scene moved, upset, crying based on what they saw today on television, in person, over the bridge, over the river.
We haven't begun to hear the stories of horror in there, and the stories of heroism. I'm sure they're going to come out in the days ahead.
I believe now we're going to Melinda Murphy, who has been hovering over what was once the Twin Towers since early this morning when this happened. Melinda, you have an update on the subways and the buses and tunnels?
You're looking at live pictures from Air 11. We are the only aircraft allowed to fly in this entire country, which is not allowed or not a part of the military and or rescue operation at this point. As you can well see, this is the section of Manhattan where the World Trade Centers used to stand, the lower Manhattan area. Now it's been replaced by a large plume of smoke which goes several thousand feet up into the air. That smoke is now darkened again, and that is because the flames are starting to flame up again. Several buildings are on fire at this point. This is making it even more complicated because they are having to attack several buildings with flames. Firefighters are having to look at many, many different areas of the city, not just one portion, not just one building on fire. And you can see how much this building is actually starting to gray up and smoke up and darken up. And that, again, seems to signify that we have a bigger flame and some more flames that are on our way. As far as the commute this morning, or this afternoon, here's what I can tell you. Subway service has been resumed on the A, B, C, D, E, F, J, M, L, number 5 and number 7 trains. It has not been resumed yet on the 1, 2, 3, or 9 train. Also, we can tell you that there is heightened security at Penn Station, as you can well imagine. Metro North is running out of Grand Central Station, but very limited service only. No tolls on any of the suburban railroads, so that's the good news there today. No tolls on the suburban railroads. 59th Street Bridge does have some traffic driving across it. Many of the other bridges have many people walking across it, the Manhattan and Brooklyn bridges in particular. LIRR does have some trains. Port Washington branch should go to the Woodside Avenue station in Queens. Also coming out of Flatbush Avenue and Hunters Point in Brooklyn, as well as Jamaica Avenue in Queens itself. That is what we know as far as the commute goes. We're looking at the roads in New Jersey right now. They're pretty much deserted. There are some cars on the roads, but they are very, very light when it comes to traffic. It seems most people have headed home or to some other safe haven, someplace they feel is safe. But again, the big story, of course, is the fact that as you look here, the World Trade Centers are no longer in our picture. You cannot see the World Trade Centers anymore. They are completely collapsed. It's hard to see exactly what the scene is from our vantage point, but you can definitely see the smoke is starting to darken again. It means more things are catching on fire. For a while, we saw a lot of white steam. Now the smoke again is starting to get to be very dark. Now, if you can imagine, these firefighters have been on the scene for more than 6 hours at this point. They're not only having to battle a blaze, they're having to battle the smoke and all the debris in the ground. So it's a very physical fight as well as a very emotional fight for these firefighters, as well as the EMTs and other rescue workers on the scene. Because the smoke is so incredibly noxious and so high and going so far, it's a good idea if you're in this general area at all to please stay inside, keep your windows closed. Do not use your water. They need all the water pressure they can get at this point. They do have some unusual firefighting equipment on the ground today. The Firefighter, which is a water boat. It is a firefighting boat, and basically it sucks water out of the Hudson River and takes it directly to a pumper, which relays it to another pumper, and it's called a relay pump. 11,000 gallons of water per minute. It's an amazing piece of equipment. Also on hand are volunteer tugboats piloted by volunteers who have again brought their tugboats down, which can also suck water out of the river and then have connected to different hoses in the general area and are able to then put water onto this fire without having to go into the water mains. It's hard to say. Perhaps some of the water mains may have even been damaged by this actual explosion and collapse of these buildings. But again, we have some unusual firefighting equipment in this area, which definitely the smoke is getting much, much thicker now. As we're looking at our window, we are hovering at about 1,600 feet, 1,500 feet. And I'm telling you, this smoke is probably 5,000 feet into the air. I've never seen anything like this in my life. And again, the smoke is getting much, much thicker. It seems to have rekindled. Something seems to have caught on fire, which obviously is adding a lot of fuel to this fire. And don't forget, it's not just one building that we're talking about on fire. Several buildings are on fire at this point. Many buildings have totally disappeared, not just the World Trade Center. We were looking at the World Financial Center earlier. All you can see that remains of the World Financial Center is the very front of the building. As I said before, we are the only air traffic control which is up. Air traffic control has asked us to land. We have been the only aircraft allowed for a couple hours at this point, and they have now asked us to land. So we're going to do that, and we're going to send it back to you. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Melinda, for all your great work the last number of hours. I must tell you, seeing the visuals out there, it's totally surreal. Just a week ago, on Labor Day, I was taking my cousin who's here from Ireland, first trip to New York City. We took him on the Circle Line. And as we came down the Hudson River and came around the tip of Manhattan, I was so proud to show him the Twin Towers. It is really the most beautiful sight, the lower tip of Manhattan with all those lovely skyscrapers, and just to see it today, just all gone. And he's supposed to go back in 3 days, and now we don't even know what the airport situation will be. We have Sukanya Christian now live out in Midtown to give us an update on how commuters are doing getting home and evacuating Manhattan. Sukanya.
Mary, we're going to get to that in a moment. So many thousands affected, a catastrophe that we really have no words to kind of express the sentiment. But Sidney Lipstein is here. He is one of those people who survived what happened in 1993. That so many of us witnessed. Sidney, can you put into words what happened today? Is it possible to even compare it?
No, it isn't. I mean, it was so much different and so much worse. There, when I was inside the building in '93, I mean, you felt a little bit and then you just walked down, but you always knew you were safe. Here, I mean, there was never a moment when I felt safe. It was like awful. It was just awful.
Can you take me back to the moment that you knew something terrible was going to happen?
Well, I mean, I just about gotten to was heading towards work, and that when the building was already on fire, but there was no indication at that time that the building would fall down. It was just we obviously saw that there was had been a tremendous explosion. The building was awful, but then standing there, all of a sudden we heard this like loud rumble, like an earthquake, and the next thing we knew, there was this huge ball of ash and soot and dust coming right down the street in a wind tunnel effect, and we turned and ran, and we got as far as we could when the thing enveloped us, and I really felt at that point that we wouldn't survive. I mean, it was like it's undescribable. It became totally black. You couldn't see a thing. You couldn't walk. You couldn't do anything. And I just grabbed the wall, and there were some people around me, and we all hugged each other, and we prayed.
People are talking about how thick that smoke was and how you couldn't even breathe. Can you take us back to that moment where you were kind of enveloped in this wave of debris that was choking you and bringing you down?
Yeah, all I could think about was, I mean, I know in the Bible when it talks about the plague of darkness in Egypt, it was that and nothing could move, and that's the way it was. It just became total 100% blackness, and nobody could move, and we just stopped, and we just prayed, and people were screaming, and then finally after a while, it started to get a little lighter, and so I was able to calm some people down and say, okay, it'll pass, but it was for those maybe 5-10 minutes that it was just total blackness. I just thought the world had ended.
Can you tell me, were people helping each other? Can you tell us how people were reaching out to each other?
Were very, very helpful. On the way up here, walking afterwards, you had people with signs for free water, free bathrooms. I mean, people were very, very helpful, and it really brought out and the lack of panic, the lack of the actual calmness of people. It just struck me as the New Yorkers. They'll take anything in stride, but they were really doing the best. The best in people came out.
When you were leaving, what was it like? It seems like in Midtown, it seems very surreal that what's happening in downtown Manhattan hasn't really happened, but you saw it, you lived through it.
Yeah, the streets are completely covered with this gray ash. It looks like either a volcano hit or a nuclear explosion. I mean, everything is white. Everything is covered with soot. Buildings, people walking around with masks on their face. It is something surreal. I mean, if you go down there, it looks like a scene out of a movie of a battlefield. It looks like Armageddon. I mean, it's just it's indescribable. It's like this is nothing. I mean, people, you walk around here, it's almost like nothing happened. Down there, it's indescribable. It's just unbelievable.
Thank you so much for sharing and coming with us, joining us live, Sidney. Mary, Marvin, when you listen to testimonials like that, it really does take your breath away. It's almost undescribable what so many people have lived through today. Also, so many lives that were lost in this tragedy as well. We want to also segue and talk about the commute. There are thousands of people that are really trying to get away from New York City, trying to get home to their loved ones. And right now, though things are pretty calm on the streets, we are being told that subway lines in all 4 boroughs are running. In Manhattan, we are being told it's only the letter lines. And Lolita Lopez, another reporter who was by the 59th Street Bridge, is saying that pedestrians are being allowed to walk across the 59th Street Bridge. As per the Midtown Tunnel, it is open, but apparently people have to kind of carpool. There's a certain number of people that have to be in the car to be allowed through the Midtown Tunnel and to gain access to the other boroughs. So that's really the situation here all morning long. You know, we've been seeing these dump trucks out here filled with sand. This is, to point it out to you, this is where the Israeli consulate is. And also, this is on 2nd Avenue. The next avenue, 1st Avenue, is where the UN is, and of course heightened security here. We haven't seen any F-16s pass over, but we of course are on high alert here. So that is the very latest reporting live. Back to you, Mary and Marvin.
Thank you, Sakanya. Just to update you, according to the mayor, as far as the subway lines, all 5 boroughs, the lines are working. All the letter lines are now operating in all 5 boroughs of the city.
I believe now we're going to show on the screen the airline flights that were involved today in the crashes around the country. There were 2 American Airlines flights and 2 United Airlines planes that were involved in the crashes. The American Airlines flights were carrying 156 people up there. You see the United Airlines Flight 93 was going from Newark to San Francisco. Flight 175 from Boston to L.A. One of these flights crashed in western Pennsylvania. Another crashed in the Pentagon. The American Airlines flights apparently are the ones that crashed into the Twin Towers. Flight 11 from Boston to L.A., Flight 77 from Washington to L.A., and just in reading some of the reports from the Associated Press, one of the planes, I believe it was the United Airlines planes that crashed in Pennsylvania, a man actually got out on his cell phone to emergency personnel. He was locked in a restroom on the plane, and he screamed into the phone, "We are being hijacked, we are being hijacked," and then it just went dead. And he said before the phone went dead, "This is not a hoax, this is the real thing."
And also, as Sonia Diener told us from Washington a short time ago, one of those planes that went down in Pennsylvania, apparently, this is according to the officials talking to her in Washington, apparently it was actually destined for Camp David, the presidential retreat, but it did not get there.
And the president was notified. He was reading to school children.
The president was in Sarasota, now on the way back. He has already been on the phone with Governor Pataki and Mayor Giuliani, pledging all of his support. Military presence is in New York. We've seen some F-16s over Manhattan, and 2 warships are heading here, we're told, including the aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy.
I believe that Mayor Giuliani and Governor Pataki held a press conference. We may have shown a little bit of it before. We may have an update now on some things that they said when they held their press conference a short time ago.
Let's take a look at that video.
This is a vicious attack upon New York. It's an attack upon America. It's an attack upon the whole concept of freedom and our way of life. And we cannot let these attacks succeed.
Mr. Mayor, you were one of the first people down there. Can you describe the scene in your own words, what you saw down there?
I don't know that I'm really able to describe it. It was the most horrific scene I've ever seen in my whole life. We saw the World Trade Center in flames, a big gaping hole all the way on the top of it. We could see people jumping from the top of the building. And then we went into Barclay Street, 75 Barclay Street, I think it was, and we were there when the building collapsed. And it collapsed in part on 75 Barclay Street, so we were trapped in the building for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. The number of casualties will be more than any of us can bear, ultimately. There are a large number of firefighters and police officers who are in harm's way, and we don't know how many we've lost.
Is it an act of war in your mind?
I don't know that I want to use those words. I think the president is the one that has to respond, and I think what he has to know is that all of us in New York support him, and support him completely in the efforts that he's going to have to make over the next couple of days, week, and to make a point that people can't do this. You can't attack innocent men, women, and children.
I know the mayor is trying to be very careful in what kind of information he gives out at this point, but the Associated Press reported that a high-ranking police official with the NYPD said thousands could be dead or injured at this point. He spoke on condition of anonymity.
Well, let's be more direct, Mary. The mayor did say, and here I quote, he said on the question of casualties, he said here, the number of casualties will be more than we can bear, ultimately, and he said a number of firefighters and police officers as well are among those casualties who, as he said, were in harm's way today. Still too early, but let's give you these other numbers. 1,500, said the mayor. 1,500 are the walking wounded. They've been taken to Liberty State Park. 600 are at local hospitals, and 150 were described as critically injured. There are 170 hospitals throughout the city. St. Vincent, he said, is taking the brunt of all the activity. Many of the injured have been taken by ferry to Newark's Penn Station and as well to Liberty State Park.
I believe now we are going to go to some tape of President Bush and some of the statements he made when he spoke to the press a short time ago.
Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act.
The president pledging his support to both the mayor and the governor. He is now back en route to Washington.
And when you look at the enormity of what happened today, consider that in 1993, 6 people were killed when that truck bomb went off in the garage of the World Trade Center #1. And then in Oklahoma City, 168 people killed when the truck bomb went off outside the Murrah building.
And we thought it never could happen again.
No, here we're talking thousands. And we've been showing you footage throughout the morning, throughout the afternoon of some of the scenes, the horrific scenes when this first happened just around 9 o'clock this morning. Here's a little bit of what we have on tape. Just some of the tape shot in downtown Manhattan, right near the Twin Towers before they toppled down. It looked like a ghost town with all the debris raining out of the windows, pencils, briefcases, shoes
Papers.
belonging to the office workers.
People have described it looking like a nuclear bomb zone. It's like something we've never seen and hope never to have seen. We thought we had seen it all. Oklahoma City, with the devastation of the Murrah building, and now the World Trade Center, which was attacked in 1993 and did survive that attack, now no longer exists. It's hard to believe to say that.
And
I mean, we've worked in this city all our lives and been here, and to say the World Trade Center is not there, it's just incomprehensible.
And they didn't bring it down the last time, but they certainly brought it down this time. Not 1, but 2 towers. And witnesses reported seeing people jumping from the top floors of the towers. A man and a woman holding hands, jumping from around the 82nd floor. The survivors have gone to hospitals all around the tri-state area. Glenn Thompson, we understand, is standing by live now at Bellevue Hospital at the trauma center there. Glenn.
Well, Mary, the hospital remains in full emergency status right now. Now, all of the staff here has been called in Doctors and nurses are going to be sleeping here tonight. Cots have been set up and meals are being prepared. 140 victims total have been brought here. 2 of them are DOA. Now, hundreds of people have come here to give blood. Many of them are tourists. And here's what some of them have to say. Okay, now so many people have come here to give blood today. We're told that the hospital has been overloaded. I believe, though, we have some tape here, some interviews with some of the people who have come to donate blood. Do we have that tape? Okay, we apologize for that. Now, some of the people have been, the lines are so long here to give blood that some of the people have decided to go home, and they're going to come back again tonight to try again to help out.
Thank you. We'll check in with you later.
We saw Police Commissioner Bernard Carrick standing there with the mayor and the governor and the fire commissioner at the press conference just a short while ago. A couple of nights ago, the commissioner was celebrating his 46th birthday. He's been commissioner for just over a year now. And I was saying to his wife at the time, you know, he's really been fortunate. There has not been any major incident involving terrorism like with other commissioners. And I also pointed out, of course, we had the incident in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, with the officers drinking and the family was killed. And then 2 days after this party to have something like this happen, it's just
very interesting.
mind-boggling.
Also, he had just returned, and I was speaking to his wife also at that function, and she, of course, was concerned. It was just about 2 weeks ago he had gone to Israel on a visit there, and of course there's the concern with all the violence in the Middle East. And let me say, mentioning the Middle East, while we're all in mourning and in state of shock here, there is, believe it or not, celebration along the West Bank. Palestinians shouting and chanting today, God is great, and applauding this act, this dastardly act of terrorism on our own soil.
And of course, New York City is not the only area of the country under high alert now. So is Washington, D.C., where the Pentagon was attacked. Sonia Diener joins us live now from Washington with the latest. Sonia.
Good afternoon. Let me give you the latest on President Bush. We've been wondering when he's going to be returning to Washington and the White House. The latest is that he is headed to or has already arrived at Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska. According to a White House spokesperson, the president wants to return to Washington as quickly as possible. He arrived in Nebraska as a security precaution, says the spokesperson, and he will convene a meeting of the National Security Council via teleconference from that Air Force Base. Again, that was a quote from a White House spokesperson. The president started his day in Sarasota, Florida. He then flew to Barksdale Air Force Base near Shreveport, Louisiana, and he had this to say. It's been about 3 hours ago. Here's a bit of his statement.
Make no mistake, the United States will hunt down and punish those responsible for these cowardly acts.
Again, President Bush from Barksdale Air Force Base. You should be looking at a picture of the Pentagon. That was earlier today. Fires burning there at the Pentagon. A commercial plane, an apparently hijacked commercial plane, flew into the side of the Pentagon about 10 o'clock Eastern time this morning. It started a huge fire. There were some secondary explosions. Part of the building then collapsed. All 24,000 employees of the Pentagon were evacuated. We understand that at least 50 people have been hurt, but we have still received no official word on fatalities. And some of those fires still burning, but they are just about under control. According to a Pentagon spokesperson, many people in that building felt a thud. Some witnesses said the whole building shook. And remember, the Pentagon is just a huge, huge structure. Some witnesses describing the scene as people screaming and pandemonium. I don't know if we still have that live picture to show you of this, a huge chunk of one of the sides of the Pentagon taken out. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, we understand, is still at the Pentagon. Right after the explosion happened, or the crash happened, he reportedly was helping get people out of the area onto stretchers and to the hospital. And then he went to what's called the National Military Command Center in the Pentagon, a secure area. So that's the scene at the Pentagon. Here here in Washington, all major federal buildings have been closed, including the White House, Treasury Department, the State Department, Justice Department, the U.S. Capitol, the Supreme Court. Also, museums, monuments are closed in the district. Most schools are closed. Many roads are closed. People have been clearing out of this city, and right now it's virtually deserted. That is the latest. Live from Washington. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much for that report, Sonia. We're joined now by one of our videographers who was in Lower Manhattan just as the towers, the Twin Towers, were coming down. Jonathan Fine, you can see
still have the soot on you.
All over you.
Hey, Marvin and Mary.
I know you're usually on the other side of the camera, but describe for us, first of all, how you got away from it all.
The police had started to move us out of the triage area. The amount of people started to build that they were triaging out in front of the World Trade Center, and they started to move us back and were asking us to move back to Broadway. So I began to move back to Broadway, and I heard what I thought was a third plane, but the reality was the building crumbling into itself. And as that happened, I turned to look, and there was a wall of smoke and soot and whatever, just like an avalanche, coming at me, and it was just a matter of trying to keep in front of it and get away from it, and you can't outrun an avalanche, and I couldn't outrun it. There was a woman with me, and I said, let's hit this vestibule. We ducked into a vestibule, wanted to be, in case things were coming down, I wanted something over my head. We ducked into the vestibule. I pulled my shirt over my head. I told her to cover her nose and mouth. We were in total darkness. It was total darkness. This is nothing. It was total darkness. After a few minutes, I told her I wasn't staying. Please come with me. I turned the camera light on and began to baby step my way down the street, which you couldn't see anything. I'd building on my elbow and just keep going. And I lost her. She went somewhere. But another hand came on my shoulder, and the guy said, let's just keep going. So we just kept walking, and I found a city bus. And we opened the doors and popped into the city bus and closed. Nobody on it. We closed the doors, turned the headlights on, turned the marker lights on, started honking the horn, and some more people came. And
Jonathan, do you think by ducking into the vestibule you saved your life?
I think by being married, by moving to begin with, and having that motion, being able to move. I can't imagine what it would have been like to be out on the street the whole time.
Here's your video.
Here's some of the video. That's
this is
another cameraman.
This may be Tony's video.
But he was down there with you, and that's the second plane hitting the Twin Towers, and you were right there when that happened.
Phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Keith Lopez's video is tremendous also. This is, I believe, is Tony's video.
People just falling to the street from the reverberation of the explosion.
This was tremendous. This was a horror.
Trying to get out of buildings, just seeking anywhere to go. Did you see people stuck at all, Jonathan, that could not get out of the Trade Center or another building?
I saw people coming down. They went out the windows.
You saw people coming out the windows?
Yeah, from above. Seemed to be from above the fire. And I just say there was nothing else they could do. And they came out and tumbled. You know, I mean...
And we're trained to be immune to almost anything, and you can't be immune to something like this. This is the debris.
This is the debris coming down. I'm sure you'll find my tape somewhere, maybe see the stuff when I was running.
Okay, we're going to go, Jonathan, we're going to get back to you later. We're glad you're okay, but we have Karen Hughes speaking. She's with the President. Let's hear what Karen Hughes has to say.
So diligently to respond and try to help the victims of these terrible attacks. President Bush has committed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to identify and bring to swift justice those responsible for these despicable attacks. The Department of Justice is setting up a hotline for families who fear that their relatives may have been victims of one of these attacks, and we will be announcing that telephone number shortly. Our fellow citizens and our freedom came under attack today, and no one should doubt America's resolve. President Bush and all our country's leaders thank the many Americans who are helping with rescue and relief efforts. We ask our fellow Americans for your prayers for the victims, for their families, for the rescue workers, and for our country. Thank you all very much, and we will continue to update you as information is available and confirmed.
Karen, how long will the president stay in Nebraska?
Return to the White House.
Will he go back to Washington, Karen? Will he address the nation?
Say it.
Karen Hughes, senior White House advisor, speaking. The president is en route back to the White House right now. We were talking just a few moments ago with our videographer, Jonathan Fine, who fortunately is fine. He ran as one of the Twin Towers was coming down, and he did seek refuge, still covered with soot. You were describing before we went to Karen Hughes the situation down there and your plight.
You described the people actually jumping from the building. Can you tell us a little bit more?
I guess people from above the fire, where the flames were, just felt that there was no other way out, and they came tumbling down.
Any word about the woman with whom you sought refuge? You said you lost touch of her.
No, I lost touch with her. Moving. I wasn't going to stay there. I had a mouthful of whatever this stuff was. It was turning to plaster, even though I had my shirt over my head. I wasn't going to stay. Turned my camera light on. I crawled. It's Keith's video. Unbelievable. I crawled slowly along the buildings, and then another hand came on my shoulder out of nowhere. And this is in the pitch darkness of this combination of soot and smoke, and that's the first time I really saw it come down. And this hand came on my shoulder, and he just said, let's just keep going, let's keep going. And we kept going, and wandered our way down to a side street, and there was a city bus that we pried the door open and got ourselves in and pulled the door shut, and that allowed us to be out of the air and the soot and the garbage that was flying around. And once it got lighter, you could begin to see as the soot calmed down. That's when I left again and started actually looking for our vehicle, the truck. And there was another rumbling, and
All right, Jonathan, we understand Mayor Giuliani is about to speak. We're going to go directly to Mayor Giuliani right now.
A lot of the people that are there.
Okay, Heidi.
They're not all there. All of our police and firefighters are not there. We have a lot of police and firefighters. Bernie, do you want to explain where the police and firefighters are?
No,
we do not, and we're not going to put one out until much later, after we get a better sense of the numbers we're talking about.
The police and the police deployment is, primary focus is down in southern Manhattan in the rescue effort, but we're tending to our policing needs all over the city. We, as the mayor said earlier, we're getting assistance from the governor and the National Guard. About 200 National Guardsmen about 2 hours, about an hour ago, I guess. There'll be another about 1,500 sometime this evening to come in to help us. And we're going to continue on the rescue efforts, but policing will go on in the rest of the city as usual.
State of alert for other possible actions. How is that going?
Obviously, we're in a high state of alert. We're looking at other government buildings, securing those buildings, securing other areas in the city. Right now, our primary focus and our efforts are in southern Manhattan.
One more, please.
I don't think anybody. The mayor and I were there this morning. I was there when the second plane hit the building. I was right underneath the building. I don't think anybody would have imagined that one of those airliners would have hit the building like that. Nobody in their right mind would have thought that would happen. So, and in this circumstance, it was something we couldn't avoid. We couldn't have stopped, even if we tried.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've been listening to Mayor Rudy Giuliani.
That was the press conference, an update from Mayor Giuliani and Police Commissioner Bernard Carrick. Commissioner Carrick said he himself was under the Twin Towers when the second airliner exploded into the tower this morning about 9:15 or so, before the two towers came down. I'm joined again by Jim Watkins, my colleague here, who's been on all morning watching the situation with us.
The thing that I think people are wondering about so much, Mary, and the thing that, of course, is going to be the next tragic step in this story is beginning to get some idea of what the death toll is. We still know, despite our hours of coverage, I think going 5 or 6 hours now, we still know very little about what really is taking place at Ground Zero and the places where the buildings have collapsed, where the rubble is collected right now. We can only guess how many victims are in there, what type of search efforts are going on at this moment.
Just to recap on the flights that were involved, there were 2 American airline flights, 156 people in total on the 2 flights that hit the Twin Towers and exploded. And then there were 2 other flights involved today in the nation, 2 United Airlines flights with a total of 110 people on board. One crashed in western Pennsylvania, another hit the Pentagon. And I know that they have been putting out phone numbers. It's so hard, though, to even use a phone because a lot of the cell phones aren't working. And I know emergency personnel need the cell phones just to communicate with each other.
Right, as the point's been made many times today, that many of the antenna for cell phone companies that cover a large portion of the northeast part of the United States were on the World Trade Center. So this has caused serious damage to communication efforts in the northeast as well. What we should mention as we talk about the flights and the apparently remarkably coordinated effort that these terrorists made, there has still been no claim of responsibility.
Although we do have a recap now of the events of this morning, which began around 9 o'clock when people were just flooding into the Twin Towers for work.
The first plane hit right as the workday began for 50,000 people in the Twin Towers, right before 9 a.m.
There are flames. There is a massive fire here.
Our WB11 cameraman was underneath the skyscrapers 18 minutes later when the second jetliner aimed for a second tower.
I mean, we have a huge hole. We have a lot of dead American people up here, and we need answers.
Some witnesses saw bodies falling out of the towers. Another reported a man and woman holding hands, jumping together from somewhere near the 80th floor.
I was supposed to be on the 82nd floor for a 9 o'clock meeting, and I was about 10 minutes late to get there. And they're telling me now that planes were going through the 82nd floor area. So I guess I was kind of covered by somebody up above.
As the debris rained down, blowing shoes, briefcases, pencils, and other articles from people's desks, the blinding smoke enveloped most of Lower Manhattan's world-famous skyline. Within an hour, the towers were falling down.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
At St. Vincent's Hospital, stretchers lined the streets. Doctors and nurses stood by with IV bottles as ambulance.
And we got as far as we could when the thing enveloped us, and I really felt at that point that that we wouldn't survive. I mean, it was like it's undescribable. It became totally black. You couldn't see a thing. You couldn't walk. You couldn't do anything. And I just grabbed the wall, and there were some people around me, and we all hugged each other and we prayed.
People are talking about how thick that smoke was and how you couldn't even breathe. Can you take us back to that moment where you were kind of enveloped in this wave of debris that was choking you and bringing you down?
Yeah, all I could think about was, I mean, I know in the Bible when it talks about the plague of darkness in Egypt, it was that and nothing could move, and that's the way it was. It just became total 100% blackness, and nobody could move, and we just stopped, and we just prayed, and people were screaming, and then finally after a while, it started to get a little lighter, and so I was able to calm some people down and say, okay, it'll pass, but it was for those maybe 5-10 minutes that it was just total blackness. I just thought the world had ended.
Can you tell me, were people helping each other? Can you tell us how people were reaching out to each other?
Were very helpful. On the way up here, walking afterwards, you had people with signs for free water, free bathrooms. I mean, people were very helpful, and it really brought out and the lack of panic, the lack of the actual calmness of people. It just struck me as the New Yorkers. they'll take anything in stride. But they were really doing the best. The best in people came out.
When you were leaving, what was it like? It seems like in Midtown, it seems very surreal that what's happening in downtown Manhattan hasn't really happened, but you saw it, you lived through it.
Yeah, the streets are completely covered with this gray ash. It looks like either a volcano hit or a nuclear explosion. I mean, everything is white. Everything is covered with soot. Buildings, people walking around with masks on their face. It is something surreal. I mean, if you go down there, it looks like a scene out of a movie of a battlefield. It looks like Armageddon. I mean, it's just it's indescribable. It's like this is nothing. I mean, people, you walk around here, it's almost like nothing happened. Down there, it's indescribable. It's just unbelievable.
Thank you so much for sharing and coming with us, joining us live, Sydney. Mary, Marvin, when you listen to testimonials like that, it really does take your breath away. It's almost undescribable what so many people have lived through today. Also, so many lives that were lost in this tragedy as well. We want to also segue and talk about the commute. There are thousands of people that are really trying to get away from New York City, trying to get home to their loved ones. And right now, though things are pretty calm on the streets, we are being told that subway lines in all 4 boroughs are running. In Manhattan, we are being told it's only the letter lines. And Lolita Lopez, another reporter who was by the 59th Street Bridge, is saying that pedestrians are being allowed to walk across the 59th Street Bridge. As per the Midtown Tunnel, it is open, but apparently people have to kind of carpool. There's a certain number of people that have to be in the car to be allowed through the Midtown Tunnel and to gain access to the other boroughs. So that's really the situation here all morning long. You know, we've been seeing these dump trucks out here filled with sand. This is, to point it out to you, this is where the Israeli consulate is. And also, this is on 2nd Avenue. The next avenue, 1st Avenue, is where the UN is, and of course heightened security here. We haven't seen any F-16s pass over, but we of course are on high alert here. So that is the very latest reporting live. Back to you, Mary and Marvin.
Thank you, Sakanya. Just to update you, according to the mayor, as far as the subway lines, all 5 boroughs, the lines are working. All the letter lines are now operating in all 5 boroughs of the city.
I believe now we're going to show on the screen the airline flights that were involved today in the crashes around the country. There were 2 American Airlines flights and 2 United Airlines planes that were involved in the crashes. The American Airlines flights were carrying 156 people up there. You see the United Airlines Flight 93 was going from Newark to San Francisco. Flight 175 from Boston to L.A. One of these flights crashed in western Pennsylvania. Another crashed in the Pentagon. The American Airlines flights apparently